Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Just After Midnight. Today, basically, I'm doing another nerd jam because this has become one of my new favorite formats on this show. These are fun and easy to do, so I'm gonna keep doing them. Hopefully weekly. Just keep putting them out there as much as possible. This week we're gonna go a little shorter. I'm not gonna be tier ranking this time. I don't want to do that every time, but it's a super fun format. This time anyway, we're gonna be talking. Really, we're just gonna be talking in a little show and tell about my favorite action / martial arts films. Now, if you guys watching this know me personally, you probably know that I'm a big fan of martial arts movies. Always have been. It's something me and my dad shared a lot of together. We liked westerns a lot, which is super cool, but really the martial arts movies is where me and my dad spent a lot of time watching movies growing up. We'll just start with some early ones that I remember really liking. I loved all of Jackie Chan's stuff. I think I got Rush Hour or like The Tuxedo pretty early on, and I loved the comedic flavoring that he brought to everything, but also such interesting and innovative movement from a martial arts perspective. Now it's definitely like gimmicky. No, it's not, tactile or efficient in the way that like anyone would actually go to do something like that, but at the same time it doesn't really matter because it fits the story and the narrative, and it's such a fun thing to watch. But moving on from there, the first R-rated movie I saw when I was like 13 was The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, and oh my gosh, is that a fantastic movie. And honestly, just a fantastic first like R-rated movie to watch, because it's kind of just like, it's philosophy and action and just kind of like cool, like good things, effectively. But what that led me into was getting to watch a movie called Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and I do actually have a little something to show that goes along with this one. So this is a super cool collection. I got this for Christmas, and because Criterion, which is the company. Here you go. The Criterion Collection is the company that manufactured this particular release. Something that's really cool about the Criterion Collection is they take the original film and they run it through a 2K film scanner, which takes the original footage that's on the film and it upscales it to a digital 2K resolution. And then they use AI along with some other stuff and go in there and kind of clean everything up and make it look about as good as it possibly can from the original film stock. So you're not losing anything, and it's not converting to a kind of like digital mess version of what's going on in the actual film. It's actually about as pristine as you can get. One of my favorite releases is The Princess Bride on the Criterion Collection. Oh my gosh, it looks so freaking good. But this might be one of the rivals for my like top Criterion Collection releases, and I've got in the range of 20 or 30 Criterion Collection movies. But this one has, I'll go ahead and open it up actually. This one has pretty much every major Bruce Lee release that he was actually in, and one that he wasn't actually in. So, trying to think of a good way to display this here without bumping everything a whole bunch. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. And there's bonus features and kind of like interviews, basically everything that was ever released for these films as far as like extra or supplemental materials, that's all included, as well as Enter the Dragon documentaries that feature his wife Linda Lee, I think was her name. She also wrote an incredible book about Bruce Lee. But I want to go through a couple of these real quick because they're so freaking cool, and this collection really is how they look the absolute best. So The Big Boss is a pretty cool one. That was his first, Bruce Lee's first big hit internationally. It's one of those that really put him on the map, and you can kind of tell why in watching it. It's very classic. It's very "you killed my uncle" kind of storyline, but what a fantastic just sort of like introductory film. Lots of fun stuff going on there. The next one though is Fist of Fury. Oh my gosh, this on a filmmaking level, this might be one of the better ones, honestly. If you can sit through the horrible voiceover, which you should, because it's just worth it too, then you're gonna get a lot out of it. It's really cool. It's all about sort of like Chinese politics at this particular time period, not current to when it was shot, because it was shot in 72, but I think concurrent to like maybe early 1900s Chinese politics, or I forget where it's set. It might be in Japan, because I think it's a karate school. But basically the whole thing is they don't like the Chinese students that are learning kung fu. And basically what happens is this rival school ends up like murdering a bunch of people from the school that Bruce Lee teaches at. And he kind of goes through this thing of being like almost called out of retirement. Not really, but like being, you know, called up as like the person who's defending the gym to go destroy the rival gym. But it's interesting how especially back then, and just it's sort of a trend in filmmaking that's gone away a little bit that I'm glad is starting to come back, weaving philosophical elements into maybe a cheesy plot line otherwise. And I think this movie does it in spades, really, because there's so much that could have been missed by just going, oh, well, it's another martial arts film, you know, blah, blah, blah. This movie adds a lot of depth with the political over and undertones and the overt racism amongst the Asian people. It's really an interesting film. The Way of the Dragon is kind of silly, but it's pretty good, you know, it's okay. The Way of the Dragon is the one with the Chuck Norris fight scene. Bruce Lee goes to Italy. He's trying to save a restaurant, I believe is what it was, and he gets tied up with the mob or something like that, or he's like defending the restaurant people that he's related to in Italy from the Italian mafia and somehow an Asian mafia at the same time. It's very strange, but yeah, it's a really fun movie. Then of course you have Enter the Dragon, which is just one of the best martial arts or films in general. So many things have borrowed from the next two that we're talking about, which is Enter the Dragon and Game of Death. Enter the Dragon is your classic sort of like martial arts tournament movie, if that makes any sense, which it should if you're into martial arts films at all. But yeah, it's the thing of, oh, well, the CIA is recruiting Bruce Lee because he's like, you know, a Shaolin monk who just like destroys. He's just like a human machine, a weapon made out of flesh and blood. So the CIA is like, hey, we need you to go to this elite fighting tournament where they have all of these girls drugged up that they're, you know, using for like human trafficking and things like that. And Bruce Lee goes in and basically just cleans up at the tournament and kind of solves everything. And it becomes a little bit more personal because I think it's his sister was killed by the right hand man of the main antagonist. Anyway, Enter the Dragon, one of the most copied plot lines in martial arts or action cinema, but this is the originator, and it's so incredibly good. Like, just not just in like the fighting sense of things. The story's really good, the acting's really good, the cinematography is really good. It's very nostalgic, and it's honestly one of the, I think it actually is the only made in America movie that he did. And it kind of goes to show that the quality is just a little bit better than any of the other ones. But you know, it's okay. Robert Klaus directed it, but he also did the next one we're talking about, The Game of Death, which Bruce Lee unfortunately passed away during the filming of. So The Game of Death is another one that's really copied a lot. It's again sort of a martial arts tournament style of things. This is A Game of Death kind of feels like a manga or an anime to me, where it's or like a video game really, because the whole thing is it's like a death tower, and he starts at the bottom tier, which is like the easiest bad guy, and goes all the way moving up through the castle until he finally beats the big bad. It's not great. It would have been great had Bruce not passed away during it, but unfortunately he did, and they had to use shots that were not actually filmed, and it was not early, or it was too early for the CGI. I mean, they weren't even using CGI, they were literally like taping film onto itself, frame by frame, which ton of work that I would not want to do. But you know, that was how they did it back then. Nowadays, of course, you just AI and motion track and upscale, and then you're pretty much there. Whereas back then that wasn't an option. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't sound very good. But there's some really fun stuff in there, and it definitely set the tone for not only American martial arts movie, but sort of like international martial arts, and like the formatting of what that storyline or genre can look like. Two others that I want to touch on real quick. As far as martial arts movies go, a lot of people talk about like Bloodsport and like Van Damme, and sort of like that stuff. People even talk about Steven Seagal, which eventually I'm going to make a full-length kind of mini documentary on this channel about, because he's just an absolute wacko. Him and Frank Dukes I would like to talk about a lot. Really just the world of fake martial arts, because there's a lot of really goofy stuff out there, and there's an awesome YouTube channel called The Martial Arts Journey, or My Martial Arts Journey. It's one of the two. Basically, it's an Aikido master who kind of got disillusioned with Aikido because it's honestly not a very functional martial art, and now his whole thing is he just sort of like is trying to discover the best martial art, but not just for the sake of a martial art, but for the sake of real terms of functional self-defense and things like that. So if you're into that stuff, please go check him out, because he's incredibly cool. But all of that to say, you know, some of the more goofy elements of these things were really on display, especially in American martial arts movies with Van Damme and, you know, some of these other guys. And Stallone even, you know, kind of put his toe in that water. But something that was happening at the same or a little bit before, like late 70s, early 80s, which was just so much better, in my opinion, from a filmmaking perspective and a martial arts perspective, was the Shaw Brothers and what they did. Now, this is where Wu-Tang gets a lot of their stuff from, like the rap group Wu-Tang. The Shaw Brothers and their whole like Shaw scope thing, which was really funny. They're like hokey Chinese kung fu films, but they have really interesting plots, and the writing is actually really good, and they mix sort of a modern approach and feel for a martial arts film and mix it with ancient Chinese philosophical plot devices and narratives, and you know, these sort of like allegories for things that, you know, actually might matter in real life. They're all sort of like virtuous lessons taught through martial arts. So the Shaw Brothers made an incredibly large catalog of films. The 39 Chambers of Shaolin had like 2 or 3 sequels, but it's like, I know a big collection of the Shaw Brothers stuff just came out, and I think it's like over 120 films or something like that. So they were very busy, and there's a lot to dig into with the Shaw Brothers. So I would definitely look into them, especially if you're maybe looking to break out of sort of the normal realm of what like martial arts and action looks like for America right now. But then the last one I want to talk about, and it's really, I just want to brag on them a little bit, because it's a film series that is, oh my gosh, it's just one of those things that like you have hope again when you see people do things like this. John Wick, oh my gosh, it's one of the first times I can think of in my lifetime that there has been something Mission Impossible quality that had more martial arts and more fun in it than just a sort of Fast and the Furious style plot. John Wick is interesting because it tackles different things that to some people may not be super important, but it's sort of a journey of honor and manhood and proving yourself. And John Wick, I think, as far as like the gun fu, as they call it, and the choreography and sort of the dance nature of the movement, from 1 all the way through 4, I think that John Wick might be the best action franchise that has been made in recent time and could possibly continue to be made. I know that the Continental has a show on Peacock right now, which is super cool, and the director and writer, I think he co-wrote it. Anyway, the director at least. You know what? I'm gonna tell you who it is. Oops, banged my desk. Chad Stileski. I'm going to say that that's how you pronounce his last name. Chad Stileski. He just did a Joe Rogan, which I highly recommend you go listen to, because he kind of breaks down the John Wick process in a way that you might not get to hear it otherwise. But man, what an interesting and incredible interview and film series. So go check out all the Bruce Lee stuff. Go check out Shaw Brothers. Check out The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. Check out some of Jackie Chan's earlier stuff. Police Story is incredible. Let me mention one more. Hard Boiled. Such an incredible film. Early John Woo. Wow. Chow Yun-fat, again, not that I brought him up before, but I'm thinking, like, I always forget him in these sort of conversations, because he was so incredible, especially early on with films like Hard Boiled. Man, so good. Definitely one to go search out. And then definitely check out John Wick. That's the thing. There are so many quality action films out there, and with so much intention behind them, but they get skipped over because something gets more marketing budget, or whatnot. These things happen in film, but there are all kinds of little interesting things that you can find that may have not touched the light of day as much. Obviously, we're talking about pretty mainstream stuff here, but if you're into the John Wick kung fu with guns sort of thing, totally need to check out a movie called Equilibrium, which is fantastic. It's with why am I blanking on his name? The guy who played Batman for Christopher Nolan. I know that this is so bad, but Christian Bale. It came back to me. Christian Bale, Sean Bean, even though he dies very early on, like every single movie he's in. That is like the originator of gun fu. So if you like that kind of stuff, Equilibrium is definitely one to check out. But anyway, this has been just sort of like an overview on a bunch of my favorite martial arts movies. And I'll probably throw in some different, little clips and things like that, just to kind of illuminate my talking points here and show you exactly which film I'm speaking about at which moment. Okay, here's another little riff just for fun, and then we'll go bye-bye. Okay. Bye, everybody.
After.